She was working for him. Yeah, she was working for him. And I don't know that that's how they met. His sisters lived on either side of our grandmother, Emma Solomon. Right. And he could have been at either of his sisters, and they could have met. But that's not no. You need to talk so they can hear you, not me.
Yeah,
I can hear you fine.
We can hear you.
We can hear you fine.
Okay, good.
Nana told me that when he asked her to marry him, that she had been a good clerk for him. She had worked for him for a while, and that one day he said, "Well, Kate, I think we should get married." And she said, "Yes, sir, Mr. Vann. Whatever you say, Mr. Vann." That was the proposal.
I heard them say that she continued to call him Mr. Vann, but I figured when the kids came along, he would be daddy from then on. But anyway, I'm sorry, I cannot think of any stories. Yeah, all her stories are going to be ones that she heard from some of her siblings.
Right.
And the reliability of that may vary depending on who told it.
Right.
I do remember that Mother said that he would send Jack and Sam as little children out to the farm, which is 3 miles out of town or more, and get the mules or get whatever they needed out there and come back. And so they'd have to walk. So they had to walk. They walked out there and rode the mules back.
My goodness.
Early morning. She thought of, like 5 o'clock, something like that.
So if he wasn't at the dry goods store, was he out on the farm, or what was your daddy doing?
He was not working on the farm, not doing any planting himself or anything, but just out checking if the bugs were in the cotton.
Yeah, just more overseeing things.
That's right.
Okay, well that makes sense.
It was not, his farming operation was not a small thing. It was like 5 or 6 different locations.
Right.
The primary one, the main one, was what we call the Kelly Place, and that's where about 400 acres was in one place. Is now part of it is the Bryan Place and the Luttrell Place and the Ezel Place,
right,
and the whatever, but it was all the Kelly Place back in the day, and so I guess that would be where he might spend most of his time. But he also had the Rash Place, which was another 2 miles out, and had Lodiva that Logan and I've already talked about, that was sold after he died, and that's a hell of a long way. It's like 8 or 9 miles.
And
10
then,
miles maybe. So,
and then
it was to the closest to the Kelly places where he would send. Yeah, the Kelly place is probably where he would have spent most of his time. Certainly, he wouldn't have sent those children too far away, although they sent Wayne and I to the store to get something, when I got run over and I was 2 years old.
Yeah.
Maybe he does know about that story.
Well, why don't you want to tell us about the story where Daddy and Sam were going to town and Sam got hit by the car?
Well, Mother said that Wayne and Sam came up. They looked for Cokes and didn't know. Looking for a Coke. Anyway, he went to, I guess Wayne went to, and said, both of them went to Mother and said, "You ain't got no Coca-Cola." She didn't say it like that. Anyway, you ain't got no Coca-Cola. That's what he said. Anyway, she gave him a dime, and off they went to town. And Wayne made it across, and Sam got hit by the car. And he came home and told them that Sam was dead, that he'd gotten hit by a car. And Grace's story, she had to jump in the tub, get her a bath, and she stopped at the funeral home, and Sybil Holman put her hat on. This is in the morning, I guess. I don't know what time it was, morning or afternoon. But she went down to the hospital with her and found out, of course, course, that they called, maybe Sybil called, and they didn't have the body at the funeral home, basically. So anyway, that was how she knew that they were going to find her son alive in the hospital.
When they got there, the story I was told is that when they got there, I was in the emergency room, and she saw my brogans up on a shelf somewhere, and she never got any further than that in the story with me. She would just break down.
Oh.
And so I never did know what happened after that, because I have no recollection whatsoever of anything that happened back then. My earliest memory is when May and Mama took me to the first grade, and I do remember that.
So sweet.
She would have been in about the 5th grade or 6th grade.
Now, what are brogans?
Big girl. Big girl.
Yes, you were a big girl. Sam, what are brogans?
Oh, they're sort of half boots.
Okay.
Kind of like the ones I have on now.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Oh. Brogans had laces on them.
Laces on them, right.
Mid calf.
Okay.
I'm sure that story's been embellished so many times, it may not be any resemblance to the truth.
Oh, I bet the way Nana reacted in those tears, I bet it was pretty close to the truth.
I do have a scar up here that used to be down around my eye that kind of grew back into my head as I got older, and I had an ear that was cut off, and it was hanging like down here, they said, and they sewed that back on. That's pretty evident if you look at the back of my ear. But so I don't think they were lying to me. I think that it's just got to be a better story over the years. I don't know. Anyway, maybe you talk. I'm going to drink wine. You talk. I'm going to drink.
Oh, okay. All right.
Well,
What's the next question?
well, what about family holidays? What would happen at your house around the holidays, like at Christmas time?
Mother would start making cakes, and you tried to make the kind that Jack liked, tried to make the kind that Sam liked, and she had a 5-gallon lard can that she kept those cakes in, and she would wrap them up in, I guess what she used as a dishcloth probably was a flour sack that had been washed and clean, and anyway, it would hold 3 cakes, and she made the kind that Jack liked, and the kind that anyway. And then she had stuff, outside pies and things like that. But I remember, not particularly about Thanksgiving, or certainly not about Thanksgiving or a holiday, but in the summertime, the back porch got screened in sometime after I was there born and going around. But anyway, they would bring from the farm peas that you shell, like purple little peas, and they would bring a cotton basket full of them, and that'd be Mother and Edith and Grace and me and Kate Helen and anybody else we could drag in to shell those peas. And she put them up, she canned them, and we got them done, and Edith was always the one that could shell them the fastest. She could do it. So anyway, I was trying to think of anything, maybe something will come to my mind. But
one thing that I think they'd like for you to explain to them is how Grandmother Vann's older sister Sediva met her husband, and a little bit about her life over in Waycross, Georgia.
Well, she was the lady that worked what is it? The
telegraph.
Teletype thing.
Telegraph.
She worked at the depot, and she worked the teletype. And he was the conductor on the train that came through Headland. I don't know, it certainly was not very often, but anyway, that's how they met. And I do not know any of the time frame, but they married. I'm trying to think of his name.
Carol, last name was Carol.
Yes, but anyway, maybe it'll come to me. She moved.
Thornton Carol, wasn't it?
Yeah, Thornton.
Thornton Carol.
Yeah. She moved to Waycross. She moved from Headland to Waycross, and they would come and visit. They'd come on the train. I don't know. They may have had to make a change. I don't know exactly how. But anyway, that was interesting. And then after Thornton died, I never knew him. They would come. Sidiva would come, and her oldest daughter's name was Kitty Wills. She was named after her husband's aunt that lived in Pennsylvania. Anyway, they had a car, which was unusual, I think. And Edith said that she smoked cigarettes. She had a long cigarette holder, and that they would ride around the square in Headland, and she'd be smoking that cigarette. And of course, to get to ride in a car, I know our daddy had a car, but it was not like a club, and I don't know what it was like.
They had a fancy car, probably.
Anyway, that mother's sister, Sidiva, would be in there visiting with grandmother, of course, and they just had the best time riding around, showing everybody the long cigarette smokers and that kind of thing.
How old was Sidiva when she died?
She was 107, I think, when she died.
My goodness.
She went in, she was at home, living at home when she was 100 years old. Her mind was clear. I went down there with, I think, Brother Sam, and Edith, and I went. Mother did not go, but Edith had gotten her $100 bills for her birthday. And she taped them together, and that just thrilled Eva to death. She just had this spark to know that daughter was there, showing off, I guess.
So Graham Vann and Sidiva would get in the car and ride around the Headland Square?
Grandmother never did.
Oh, no.
Edith and
Edith and Sidiva.
Oh, Edith and Kitty Will, yeah, the oldest daughter.
Whoever, maybe Grace or whoever was available would do that.
Oh, that's funny.
So Kitty Will and Edith would have been about the same age, probably.
I don't know. I don't know that. Kitty Will was...
Edith was the oldest girl, in the Vann crowd. And
I guess Kitty Will, I'm sure she was the oldest one, too.
And who was smoking the cigarette? Was Kitty smoking the cigarette or Sidiva?
No. I don't think Eva ever smoked a cigarette. I never did see her smoke. Certainly the grandmother did not.
No, I didn't think so.
But anyway, it was just her habit, and it was all right.
Okay. And they were...
All those Vann girls and boys smoked at one time.
Yes.
I can see it. I can see them driving around the square in a fancy car smoking a cigarette right now, just thinking about it, about the way they behaved.
I remember Nana and Granddaddy both smoking when I was a little girl. We'd walk in their house and they'd be playing bridge and smoking, and the whole house would be smoky back there. So I remember the Vanns.
I'm surprised. I think she said it must have been a cigarette holder for the cigarette to be that long. That's what was described.
So it sounds like Graham Vann was a very good cook, and she would make all those yummy things for y'all when y'all came for the holidays and things like that. Graham Vann was a good cook.
Yes, she was an excellent cook, and she always had, that's my phone, I think, so had help, she had uh, somebody cleaning the house and somebody in the kitchen too to help her. But
Good.
she was the overseer, and she was the recipe lady. She
Good.
used recipes that she had, and I'm sure that the cook came and could fix breakfast for us. I remember a wood stove. She had a wood stove for the winter, and Aunt Mamie, her next sister, uh, had an oil stove. And so when she got a new one, Mother got the oil stove. So she had the wood stove in the kitchen and the oil stove in the kitchen on the other side of the door. So it was cooler in the summertime to use that oil stove. And that was a big thing. Not a big thing,
But I
a
bet
good
that
thing.
helped. Yeah, that helped. Well, what do you know about Graham Vann's parents? Did you see those grandparents much?
My mother's parents?
Yes.
No.
The Emma Price and John Tom.
Her father was deceased. When I was,
Okay. Let's see. He died
he
in.
was 40 something when he died, I think.
Oh, I see. He died in 1902, and then Emma Laura Price died in 1951.
Well, anyway, I don't know the years. But what was I starting to tell?
But you didn't know John Thomas Solomon because he died so young. And then
No.
Emma Laura Price, do you remember her? That was.
Yes, that was grandmother.
Yeah.
That was her grandmother.
Yeah, I remember her.
Yes.
So
I don't know. She died in the 50s, I think.
Right.
Maybe.
1951.
Yeah. Anyway, but she was, I remember that her sister Anna Hardrick is her last name, lived down the street from where 102 Forest Street. They lived in the opposite end going toward the church, if you remember that.
Yes.
And I was going to tell you about what was happening then, but anyway, I'll jump and say,
Anna Hardwick.
I don't know, maybe was 8 years old or something, and I had the measles. And Mother, I think, might have had to go to the hospital. She had something wrong with her arm and had to, at one time, go to the hospital. But anyway, grandmother came walking, no cars, walking. She came over to stay with me. And I think I had the measles at the same time, had the arm problem. But her sister lived down the street next door to where Mama Kate and Pap's house is. You know where that is.
Yes.
where we live, where Linda and I live.
That's right.
Right.
She lived there, and she walked around from the Grace's house down to Church Street, down to 105 Church Street. And they kept the room dark, but they had rocking chairs, and they sat there and they talked. And I was in the bed, covered up fever and whatever else. But they looked after me. They were there to get me a glass of water if I wanted it, or help me up to the bathroom or something like that. But anyway, I remember that incident and thinking about Anna Hardrick was her name.
Yeah.
And her son, I think her husband was a dentist too.
Dr. Fred Hardwick?
No, that was her son.
Oh, her son. I don't know about
I think, no, it's Marky Blackshear's.
Martha Van Blackshear, married to the
completely different side of the house. Anyway, another thing about Aunt Anna, Mother said that Daddy would have watermelons growing, and on the back porch he would have what he called gray. That was the light green with no stripes.
Uh-huh.
He'd have about 5 of them, kept them in watermelon season, and they would. This is when I was up like 8 or 10 or even older than that. I don't remember year she died. But anyway, when we'd cut the watermelons, Mother would cut them in the backyard and had chairs out there. And Anna could not wait to get there. Grandmother would be there, and her sister Anna couldn't wait to get over there. And all she wanted was the watermelon, and she liked it, and she would eat it down to the white rind. And we just laughed at it. She says, "Oh, that's the best part of it." It was the best because it was more for her. Anyway, this is just, I can't organize my thinking. I just jump from one thing to the other.
That's right. I do the same thing, and they're tired of talking to me. But one thing that I think would be interesting is the fact that when you were real young, some of your siblings still live there. I guess Jack might have been gone when
he was at Auburn.
And he was the only one, really, I guess, or the first one anyway, to go to Auburn and the first to graduate from Auburn. But he was not around to help that much when Granddaddy Vann died.
I don't know anything about that. I do know, and they probably have told you this, you don't need it, but when he died, that Mother did not want him, they would embalm him at home, and her friend, Mother's friend that lives 2 doors down from us, talked her into, they wanted to take him to Dothan, the undertakers did, and she said, "Well, Kate, they'll do a better job. They can do a better job in Dothan." So she let them take the body to Dothan and bring it back, and the funeral was held at the house at 105 Church Street, West Church Street.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
There's some misinformation on that. There's probably somewhere that the funeral was somewhere else, but
no, it was. I mean, this one, his was. Mother said that people just stood outside. You know, the family who could get in, but the rest of the people just stood outside.
Oh.
Anyway.
That was very nice that they all came.
Yeah,
that was like 1933, right? Something like that.
I think it was it November the 10th? October the 10th? I'm not sure of the date. It was, I want to think, October, maybe 10th, 33. Anyway, I thought that, I mean, that was the first I knew of anything like that happening. So.
Well, then after the funeral, Uncle Bob was very helpful to Grandmother Vann, and of course Uncle Sam somebody had to be elevated to be the person in charge, and he selected himself, I think. But
well, he was there, and Jack was at Auburn.
Yeah, Jack was at Auburn, and he was there.
Bob's Felix was younger and didn't. And I know that Sam had worked several places, like for Ben Brantley at the hardware, and had some business contacts.
Right, and he was very capable. He was.
I'm not making light of it. I was just trying to make part of it funny. But
yeah.
He did step in, and my mother had the highest regard for him. And I know that it's the highest because she named me after him.
That's right.
And not after Granddaddy Vann, but after her brother, Sam. And he was.
Jack was, I think he was the nearest thing to the father that Kate Helen and Jim ever
had. Absolutely. He was, and so that I can't imagine the dynamic of that myself, but I can see that I know that he stepped in a void, and I know that he made decisions that needed to be made, and whether they were right or wrong doesn't make any difference. Somebody had to make them, and that family, well, you know more as much about that as I do. It stuck together more than most families are able to stick together and do things. And, you know, there might have been an argument or two here and there, but I don't know of many that they ever had.
I don't either.
Uncle Bob, I don't think Sam said, I don't know, but I think myself that none my father's people volunteered to help Mother in any way, business-wise, farm-wise. I think he sold the dry goods store.
About that, if somebody did.
Yeah, but anyway, but the business end of it, and he was. I know that Mother said, always said, if you don't do anything, if you don't have anything but the shirt on your back, make a will. Our daddy did not have a will. She got a child's part, which was 1/10 of what little money that was left. And then Uncle Bob, her brother, Bob Solomon, was the man that helped her. And he took that, as I understand this, it might not all be right, he took whatever was left in the insurance policy and he would lend it to different people. People didn't have any money. And I don't know how the bank might have been into business then, but anyway, he had Uncle Bob bought and stole pecans. He had a little place uptown, and he kept a little book of who he loaned the money to, and as they paid off and everything. And that was just one of the things he did for her, I know. And I'm sure there was more than that.
They owned at one time some houses over in what we call the Quarter, which is where the black families of Headland lived. Back in the day, they all, of course, were segregated. And I remember, I was old enough to know when Uncle Sam sold the last couple of those houses, and those were houses that Uncle Bob would have invested in the name of the Vanns.
Yeah.
And they would either
rented them to the blacks, and it was dirt cheap, I'm sure, because everything else was.
But those were the people who would come and help. You remember Amy Jones? Amy, it was her last name Jones.
Yeah. I can't think of the one. Alberta went with the leader to Montgomery. I'm trying to think of.
And this was Alita was Mamie Oates' daughter and oldest daughter, and a black lady went with her to Montgomery when she moved to Montgomery. It was not a slave, but it was the closest thing that you can get to it. And Amy, I remember, was a very light-skinned lady, and she helped Mama when we were coming along, and she also, of course, worked for Grandmother Vann. And so there was that kind of an arrangement for the help that you had. And most of the time, they would come to your house to do laundry, but sometimes I remember we took laundry somewhere else.
Ours went down to the Quarters, to that house. Our laundry went down there, and it was a big cotton basket full of clothes for all of us in our family, and they would bring it back with a wagon, red wagon, Charles wagon.
Yeah.
Bring it back to you washed and cleaned and ironed and everything.
Yeah, it would be ironed. It would be, they did that.
So sometimes the rent for those houses was that.
Wow.
And I don't think that was unusual. I think everybody did it the same way at that level of help. But at some point, the houses cost too much to keep up, and they wound up selling them to, I don't know to whom, but from there on, they didn't have any other. But they kept all of the real estate together until just before Grandmother Vann died, and I remember them telling me that she wanted them to go ahead and separate the property so she could know who got what, and because it was scattered around.
Yeah. And
that is what happened. I don't know whether Logan and I talked about that or not, but this was like 1989 or 90, somewhere along in there, and they all went over to the bank in the boardroom upstairs, and Uncle Sam and Dr. Vann, and with some help from me, had prepared maps. And
there were three of them, did it.
Yeah, divided up the property and on paper, and Uncle Sam put the valuation on each one, and the idea was that every Vann child would get a piece of property, a farm that would have timber, maybe, and pasture and water, hopefully, so that it would be a farm. And we first, Dr. Vann approached me about it, and he said, well, we don't need but 7 of those, or maybe he said 8, whatever, because he didn't figure the ESPYs would want to have any. They had so much land anyway. So we first divided it up into 8 parcels or whatever, and sort of at the last minute or at some point late in the game, the ESPYs let it be known that they did want a farm because they wanted to have a Vann farm also. Now, they were all calling all of them Vann farms at the time. So they got put back into the mix, and we had to redraw the lines, and Uncle Sam had to do a reevaluation. And then they went across the street to from the porch house to the bank and went upstairs, and each of those farms had a number on. I'm not a number, but a letter, A, B, C, D, E, F. And they drew numbers, drew letters, and that's how the
Go ahead.
and she may know more about it than I do, but I know that they all drew a letter, and whatever letter they had was the farm they got, and each one of you couldn't get everything exactly equal, so some farms you had to pay a little money to get if you got C, you might have to pay a few dollars, and if you got F, you might get a few dollars extra for the land. And so that all happened, and I've forgotten in your case whether you got...
I got 37 something arable acres. That can be planted in peanuts. The rest of mine was timber.
And then you got some money, right? Or did you owe some money?
I don't think I owed. I don't think I got it. Mine was okay.
Well, yeah, but some got a little extra money because the land they got was not, in Uncle Sam's opinion, valued at a par, and then others had to pay. And I thought that was a wonderful.
It worked out. Nobody fussed about anything. Nobody. Well, Sam Vann said, "Well, I will be glad." After they were all divided before they were open, I think maybe I'll exchange with anybody that wants to exchange. And I cannot remember, Julie, which one it was, but Kate Harrison, I believe I will die if I get that. She didn't get it.
No,
I can't remember which one it was.
The story I heard is that Uncle Jack claimed that what he drew was that somebody outdrew him or something like that, got a better property, and Uncle Sam stood up and said, well, I will give you mine. And he had drawn another one, and if you want it, and he did not take it. And so there was no argument about it, but there was some fun stuff talked about. In fact, one of the stories is that Uncle Jim, who needed it less than anybody, at that point, probably besides the ESPYs, he got a piece of property way out in the country, and it was like 170 acres, and most of the others were like 100 to 120 or 30 each. And his was supposed to be the least valuable property. In fact, he may have gotten some cash from like Uncle Sam, who got the closest piece to town, but it was only like 80 or 90 acres, and he had to pay some extra to get that. And I think he paid it to Dr. Vann. Well, within 5 years, Dr. Vann sold more timber off of his piece than any of the rest of it cost. So he wound up, they call him the luckiest man ever to walk the streets of Headland, Dr. Vann. And he wound up with that. But the real point of it is that if you have any experience at all, you know that families break up because of property division and that kind of thing on a regular basis. And here is this family that grew from having lost a father before the last child was born, and the rest of them not only cohabitated or lived together or amongst each other for all those years afterward, but were able to divide the property up among themselves, still love each other, and
No fussing, no fighting.
And no fussing, no fighting. You can't separate them. The community thought of the Vanns as the Vann clan, that tough nut bunch of folks. You can't kill them with a stick, that kind of thing. Just so that was kind of the reputation that they had that I grew up hearing about.
Yes.
That's wonderful, isn't it?
It is. And all that property is still around. May still has 110 acres or 20 acres. She sold 5 acres to Jim Burnham to build a house on, and I think that I think they might have needed a little money to do something, and Uncle Sam helped make that sale, and she didn't have to come out of pocket with any money, maybe something like that. That wasn't it. It was something else.
I didn't have to pay any money.
Oh, you didn't have to pay any money. Well, you did sell that little lot to Jim Burnham.
7 acres.
7 acres, okay.
And it was in the trees, in the forest.
Yeah, what?
I said I only had 37 some extra acres
of arable land. Yeah.
Where they plant peanuts and cotton.
Yeah.
But she's rented that out every year since then. Yeah. And somebody makes a crop and she gets paid for it, and that's the way it always was.
I guess everybody. I don't know what the Espys did, but I was just thinking about somebody farming it and this guy still does it. Carol, can't think of his name. Anyway, it's all set.
Curry Parker I think farmed most of it now, and some of them, the Espys had somebody else that farmed their portion, and different ones, could make a decision to let somebody else farm it. Sid farmed part of the Kelly place for a number of years until 1980, when a drought knocked him completely out of the farming business, and he never farmed any land after that. Cotton and corn and peanuts type stuff. He continued to do the cows, as did D-Daddy, for a long time. But anyway, we beat that horse to death.
Well, those were good stories, good things to hear. When you were talking about the lady and the watermelons that liked to come over and eat watermelons with you when you were kids, Nana told me one time, I guess y'all had watermelons a lot, and that Granddaddy Vann had grown the watermelon patch, and he had the kids help carry the watermelons in to the back of the house. And so Nana was carrying one, and she said she was a little thing. She was 4 or 5 years old and carrying a big old watermelon, and she dropped one coming up to the house. And she looked at her daddy, because she knew that wasn't going to go over very well, that she had not been able to carry that watermelon. And he kind of gave her a stern look, and then he thumped her on top of the head for dropping the watermelon. And so that made her sad. She was sad that she had disappointed her daddy. But then when she looked back up at him, he winked at her or grinned at her or something to let her know that she wasn't in that much trouble. So she picked it back up and carried it the rest of the way. It didn't break open, but she had let one slip. So, but he had kind of been stern with her, but then he had let her know that she was forgiven right away. So I thought that was a cute story.
I know, thinking about dropping the watermelon, I know Pap had a thing, and he let Zona go out and pick a watermelon, and she got a big one. She got to the gate that went into Pap's backyard and dropped the watermelon. So much of that.
Did it make a big mess?
No,
it
was. Of course, Pap didn't care. I guess he let her go get another. But something that happened long before I was born. Mr. John White, who was a very prominent businessman in Headland, had 3 sons, and Jack was one of them, and Phil, and what was the other one's name? Anyway, they used to come out. Mother had a sleeping porch, and she had, I know, 2 big beds in there, 2 double beds. They didn't have king size at that time. But anyway, most of the children would be sleeping, 4 of them would be sleeping back there. And those boys were friends of the family. They lived in the house, what was the parsonage, well, it was 101 Forest,
West Church, yeah. West Church. House on the corner right across from the church, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, Mother said that they would come down there and sit on the back. They had a back porch and the steps down. They'd sit on the bottom step and be early in the morning, before they got up, and the children and the Vann family had not gotten up, and those boys would come and they'd cough. And they'd cough and make noise until they got up. But they were good friends, and that's just aside from the family. And when
they wanted them to come up, get out and play, right?
Yeah, they were ready for them to go to the farm, probably with them. I thought of something about the house, but Mother said, I think that Jack and Sam were born when they lived across the railroad track.
I think that's right.
The two oldest were born. It was right after, I can't remember the street, but do you remember Aunt Mamie's house crossing the railroad track?
Broad Street, yeah.
Going up Broad Street.
I don't.
Anyway, with those boys, they continued to come down there because they liked to play with the Vanns and I'm sure they had to go out with them and pick boll weevils out of the cotton. Daddy took them out when they were old enough. But anyway, Mother said when they moved into that house, I think that they had put a bathroom in, and when they lived across the railroad in that first house when she married, they had an outhouse. They didn't have a bathroom. But anyway, they did have the bathroom put in at some time. But anyway, they began at one point in time when those three boys were down there to come. They were sitting there, but they started smelling some awful odor, just some terrible odor. And anyway, I don't think it was Jack. I think it was Phil that they went under the house and they found where there had been a well under there that was not covered up, where the bathroom had been installed. But there was a dead cat down there. And that one of the White boys, that's the last name, White, went down there and got that dead cat. I think they paid him a quarter.
A quarter. Ooh,
it was worth a lot more than that.
Yes. Wow.
Edith said she never had to. She was the oldest girl, so she was born at 107 West Church Street. 105 West Church Street, and the two oldest boys were born on North Railroad Street, over next to where Richard Brannon lived, as a matter of fact. So
it was an apartment. They didn't live in the whole house, but they didn't have indoor plumbing. Mm-hmm. Sure.
Logan has seen already in those newspapers that some of the news would be that Julian and Grace Brannon took a room in D.D. Bush's house on such and such. Yeah. There was more of that kind of. That was about the only way a young couple could get started is living in somebody else's house. You sure couldn't afford to buy one,
right?
And weren't any available. But anyway, Edith told me that she never lived in a house that didn't have a bathroom.
Well, she was right. She was next. She was the first born, the one that did have an indoor bathroom.
She married well, and we've all celebrated that marriage the rest of our lives. She was one of the ones that could take the truth and stretch it a little bit, and there were others. Most of them belonged to other people's families that did stuff like that, according to Grace.
Not our personal family.
No way. We exaggerated.
Oh.
Liv Stroop was the worst. Elizabeth Oates Stroop was the worst of those exaggerators, I guess you'd say.
Telling tall tales. Well,
Yeah.
well, May, do you know where Nana and Granddaddy got married? Did they get married in Headland, or did they go out of town to get married?
I don't know. I don't know that. Now, Kate Helen could probably tell us that. She is in very bad shape.
That's what I've heard. That's what Emily told me, that she was having a hard time with her memory. Yeah, we just were just wondering if they had stayed in Headland and got married, or if they went out of town, even out of state. They could have gone to Georgia or Florida.
I do think this. I think that they got married in town, and the house, Thad Mitchell is the man that bought the store when Daddy sold it. But did you ever know where Grandmother's house was in Headland on East Church Street? Anyway,
I don't think so.
I think
On East Church or West Church?
East. It was
where Graham Solomon.
Yes. It was. I don't know.
Reed lived there, right?
Yeah. I don't know that they lived there. I mean, they got married there. But I think that they went. I said, well, where did you go? Or Kate did it. And they went to Thad Mitchell's house, there was one house in between our grandmother Solomon's house and the house they went to for their honeymoon.
Okay.
They were married. I don't know if they were married at grandmother's house. I don't know where they were married.
But you think it was in Headland?
It was in Headland.
Okay.
And I'm saying the house Mother grew up in.
Okay.
There was one house in between that house and the house where they went to on the honeymoon.
Well, that was a short walk.
It's a short walk.
They needed to get somewhere in a hurry, I think.
Get things started.
Anyway, I don't know.
Information that passed down to their children was slim and few and far between on that subject. And,
yeah, well, I understand.
And then, of course, Daddy didn't have to go very far when the war broke out. He got assigned he dodged it for a long time, and then was able to, when he had to go to Napier Field, which was not very far, 4 or 5 miles. So that part was good for him. Not the same for Uncle Sam or Uncle Bumps, both of whom served in overseas, I guess. I don't know that Uncle Bumps where did Bumps go? To the Navy.
Well, he went to South Pacific to get in. I don't think that
he was too young.
17 when and I don't know where he went to, which base first. I'm sorry,
Backing up to the first time when y'all lived at 105 West Church Street, there was a big barn in the backyard. Well, not in the backyard, behind the house, back in toward the house that we grew up in, 102 Forest Street. And Uncle Bumps fell out of the hayloft. Tell him that story.
On those Jezebel's horns.
Yeah.
On the cow's horns. There was a ladder up where they would store the hay for the cows and whatever. And there was a room in the barn where they'd have the corn for the planting and another on the other side for storage.
Milking room.
Yeah. Anyway,
Wayne and I were like 5 and 6 years old back in this thing.
They had cows and chickens, and he was fooling around, I guess. And there's just
hayloft.
But anyway, there was just steps nailed up. It was not a ladder; it was a nail to the wall.
Yeah.
But he was over where the cow was, and somehow he fell out on the cow's horns.
Oh my goodness!
Hit his head when said Felix fell on Jezebel's horns.
Oh, that could have really hurt him.
So they had some Knox. Another thing about Bob Felix was that he must have been pretty bad or something. Anyway, my mother's brother lived next door to Uncle Kurt, and Aunt Gussie lived next door. And so Mother went over to visit with Aunt Gussie, and they were talking, and Gussie said, well, I think Emily went over there and with her, and Gussie said, well, what about Bob's? Well, he's all right, Mother said. I locked him up in the chicken coop. And Emily said, and I let him out.
Nana told me that story. She said there was a ruckus while she was visiting Gussie. There was a ruckus. And grandmother said, well, if I didn't know for sure that I had locked Bumps up, I would think that's him making all that noise. But I know he's not doing it because I've locked him in the chicken coop. And then Emily said, I let him out. So then they knew it was Bumps making all that ruckus. Isn't that
has something to do with the reason that Grandmother Vann had to sign for him to go to the Navy.
That is hard to believe. He was such a sweetheart as a man, but I guess as a little boy, he was a wild one.
He was around. He was a favorite of his nephews. They all were. I mean,
Yeah.
Oscar.
One of our daddy's nephews, I don't remember which one it was. They lived in Abbeville, and I guess when Bumps was a young man before the war, and anyway, he gave that uncle from Abbeville gave Bumps a bicycle, and so anyway, they loved it and everything, and Emily said, Bumps said, Emily, if you will milk for me, I'll give you my bicycle. She went out there, milked the cow. Well, no, I'm not going to give it to you.
That's
And he
sticker.
did that over and over, and
She would fall for it every time.
I think that she finally got it through her head that she don't have to buy her own.
They were very close in age. He was a little bit older than she was, a year or two.
Yeah.
2 years, I probably.
Y'all already have the story of the well, of Bumps in the well, don't you?
I vaguely remember that. Like, was it across the street from the house on Church Street?
No, it's just down the street by the Methodist church on down. There was a pasture where my daddy rented it and had his cows, some cows down there.
Okay.
And they went to down there. The Methodist preacher lived about 4 houses or 5 down on the same side of our house. It was close to the pasture. And he and Bumps were friends. They were young. And anyway, they went down there to the pasture, and Bumps got up. The rope got off the tickle that let it down, and he got up to put it back on, fell in the well. And so, anyway, he said, I can't even think of the boy's name right now. Send down the bucket. And he sent the bucket down and held the rope or wrapped it around the corner of the wooden part around the well. And Bumps climbed up that rope like a monkey. And went home, changed his clothes, went back out to play. Mother said she didn't know a thing in the world about it, but she found that pile of wet clothes by the chest where he'd gotten clean clothes out to put on. And they put a story in the newspaper, and it was called Bumps Climbs Out. Him falling in the well.
Oh my goodness. That's scary.
How about the meals that y'all had over at 105 West Church Street when you were growing up? When you were growing up, who was living there besides Kate Helen and Emily?
And Sam.
Jim and Sam both at the time.
Yeah.
And then Uncle Sam went to the war, and
That's right.
And Jim stayed there.
Meals actually always had, the cook would be there by breakfast time, and anyway, we had that, and she had a cook. We had I guess we ate in the kitchen mostly because we weren't all seated at one time. And
There wasn't a table
something-
big enough for that.
what
There must not have been a table big enough for all of
in
it.
the dining room,
Oh yeah, that was a
it's
big
back. The front door was a hall, and then the next hall was our dining room, and there's a big dining table with at least 8 chairs there. But we ate, I guess, when we got up. Wanted 1 or 2 at the time. We never did sit down for breakfast.
Yeah.
And when I was coming along, I don't know how they handled it otherwise. But,
Of course, they all said that they were lucky to get a meal, but they had plenty to eat.
It sounds like it. Oh,
Julie,
man.
I don't know if anybody told this story or not, but when Edith, I guess, was in high school, the people that built the house that I'm living in now were the Scaniers' last name. And they had a daughter named Mildred Scaniers. They had several children, but this is the story I was going to tell you about Edith, what Mother said about Edith. Anyway, they would go to school. They're out here. They'd ride on the school bus. But anyway, at lunchtime, they didn't have any lunchrooms. And Edith would invite Mildred to come home with her and have lunch. And Mother said didn't have anything but baked sweet potatoes. And she said Edith would cry because all they had for Mildred to eat was a baked sweet potato. That was the story, that she would cry like that. But I'm sure out here now, he was a professor, Scaniers, I guess, at the school.
This very house that we're in is
How about
Scaniers' home.
Anyway, I guess they had gardens and things. But I guess at some point in time, our daddy might have killed a cow or something, and then sometimes they'd have meat or chickens. I know we had eggs and chickens. They'd have chicken, but not for lunch. And she invariably invited Mildred to come, and she just squalled because she didn't have anything.
That just embarrassed her so much.
Made her look bad.
Oh my goodness. Well, I was going to ask you, when you said that grandmother got a child's portion of granddaddy's estate, I guess is what you're saying, because he didn't have a will. So did all the children get a portion of his estate and grandmother got the 10th portion?
No, I guess they decided what it would be of the money that he did have.
Uh-huh.
And she couldn't touch theirs or didn't touch theirs.
So that was saved somewhere? That was saved?
I guess. I don't know.
I think what she's saying is that Uncle Sam, the law was the same back then as it is now in terms of if a man dies intestate, the wife inherits half of his estate, and the children
Get half.
inherit the other half in equal portions. And per stirpes is what the
What
word
does
is.
that mean?
It means one for each child. And the way if a man dies and he has a will, and it says that each child gets whatever per stirpes, it means that child gets one share of however many other siblings there were, and that if he only has one child, that grandchild gets all of it instead of, and if somebody like Grace has 3, they get one third of a share. And I think what Uncle Sam did was that he allocated to grandmother's use for her use alone around the house, pay whatever bills she had, some portion of the income of the estate. And then the rest of the money was divided among the 9 children, basically. And that's how they did.
8 children. But Sam was saying that.
He got a share too, yeah.
But so instead of
he
her,
did all that for nothing. He did all of that managing of it for nothing. Never charged anything. Of course, nowadays, people are in that business and they do it for you for a fee.
right?
But
Okay.
he did the best he could with what he had, and all the income that came in, Grandmother Vann's needs were first, really.
Right.
And but when it turned out that she was only allocated maybe 10% of the total, and then the rest of the 90% went to the 9 children.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And whereas if he had had a will, maybe she would have gotten 50%, and then the other 50% would have been divided between the 9. Gotcha.
If they had sold the property, half of it would have been hers.
Yeah.
She didn't want them to sell it either.
Right.
Nobody wanted to sell it. They didn't want to sell the 900 acres they had to sell in order to pay the bills.
Did you tell them that you might already know it and don't need to go into it, but we talk about the farm that is on the way to Columbia.
Diva, yeah, that's the one that was sold.
That the fertilizer bill was so high she couldn't pay it. It was $700 or $900 or something. So they sold it, and the bank got their money the fertilizer company got their money.
Wow. I didn't know why that she sold it, but yeah, that's a lot. My goodness. Well, they did a wonderful job of managing it, because I know it was still tight. Money was still tight, but there was enough for everybody. And then look at what was left over, that everybody was able to have a lot of property at the end. So that was a great thing that they did.
It was tight managing going on.
Right.
It worked.
Yes, very wise use of the resources, so that was great. Okay, well.
What can you remember about other people getting married? Like, I know Edith worked at the bank for a while, and that's how she met Major.
Right.
And then Emily worked at the bank also, didn't she?
Mm-hmm. Well, Oscar had a store down here. And Joy was dating a friend.
Joy is Corinne's daughter. That's Grandmother Vann's youngest sister,
Right.
And about Joy, Sam always said she was our 10th child, because she was an only child, and her mother and father were separated, and she stayed with us a lot. And then he called her the 10th child.
That's sweet.
But anyway, we're going. I got off the track.
No, I forgot what I was saying too.
Well, you were just talking about how with Aunt Emily and Uncle Oscar, and just how different people got married, Edith and Major. How did you meet Lee, May? How did you meet Uncle Lee?
Well, I was working at the telephone company, and a friend of mine that worked there knew him and knew his family, and they introduced me to the Charlie and Winnie Finley. Charlie is deceased now, and she is in a facility and has been for a number of years. But her mind is just practically gone. I haven't seen her in ages. But they introduced me to him, and we just hit it right off.
Oh, that's great.
Good. It's great, for sure. Had some good times. We lived in Albany until 2000. He retired first. He was a postman. And then when I retired in 2001, I think, or 2000, maybe. I can't even remember the year I retired. But anyway, we moved over here in 2001 in October. So I've been living here 24 years.
Wow, that's great.
Anyway, it's been good. All has been good.
I'm so glad you're there. That's good.
Thank you. I am too. I don't know what I'd be doing if I was still in Georgia. But anyway, we had a good time and enjoyed it and liked it. They fit right in here until he got into what does he have? Gosh. Alzheimer's big time.
Yeah,
So,
that's hard.
He fit right into the Oscar Ezel, Emily Ezel, Sam Vann, Fran Vann, Bumps, Dot, Julian, Grace, fit right into that crowd of folks. And he was a big man, and he didn't take any crap off of any of them, and they all had a lot to fish out. But
Oh, Lord.
He tried to play bridge. You know, bridge was a game that was played a lot back then, and Edith and Emily and I mean everybody. May and I still play bridge at my house on Wednesday. That's a lot of fun.
They let me hold a hand, Julie. I've forgotten everything I knew about it almost. But
anyway, there's a lot of etiquette in the bridge game, just like there is in golf, which most of that was destroyed this past weekend with the Ryder Cup. But anyway, when Lee got a hand, if it didn't have any honor points in it, his first reaction was to throw the damn things on the table and say, "I'm not playing this hand." And nobody challenged him. They just dealt another hand. Anyway, we loved Uncle Lee.
He's bad. He's a bad boy.
Yeah. He had one brother that played baseball professionally for the Baltimore Orioles, I think.
He went out with Kansas City and wound up with New York, I think.
New York. Anyway, he played a lot of professional baseball, and then Joe Bryant, his youngest brother, married one of our Woods cousins, Barbara Woods, and they still live here. And Joe's active in the church, big, tall, good-looking guy, just like Lee was. And then there were other brothers, Aaron was the baseball player, I guess.
No, Bill.
Bill was the baseball player.
Bill is still living. They're in an assisted living, both of them. His wife's name is Barbara also, and she has some dementia. And he was a catcher for the ball teams he played with, and his knees are gone. He's had surgery, and he's in a wheelchair most of the time now.
My goodness.
It was a big family, kind of like ours, I guess, Bryant family, and so we all knew each other and enjoyed each other, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That is neat. That's really great. Well, I've enjoyed these conversations. Logan sends them to me after y'all talk, and I've listened to them, and I had no idea, Sam, that you went out to visit my mom and daddy that first Christmas, and
absolutely, yeah.
Just so many neat stories. Yeah, I've learned so much, and these are just priceless. These conversations are amazing, and Logan's going to get in here and get them cleaned up a little bit, edited, and then we can just share them with the whole family. So thank you so much for your time and stories. And if y'all think of anything else, we'll just do this again. We'll just keep having conversations and keep making videos.
Good. Maybe we will think of something that would be important for you to get in. But I've enjoyed you and your son, and it's been a good afternoon.
Yeah, he's a precious angel. He's working so hard on these family stories. But we love you, and thanks for your time, and we'll do this again, okay? Okay. Thank you so much. Love you. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.